Ladies and gentlemen, he is a man who wrestled with the Careless Whisper. He is the Filipino Dream, Johnny Dynamo. Johnny, thanks for making this happen, man.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yes, big shout out to was it Mamasmo? Or oh my God, I botched his name. If he hears this, please forgive me.
I
Let's
know him as Gino, but I didn't know Massimo. Oh, I think that's his formal name.
yes,
But yeah, shout outs to Gino. We went to high school together, and I haven't seen him in a while. But I'm glad that we can make this connection.
yeah. What high school did you go to, man?
Oh, that was South City, South San Francisco.
Okay,
It's
for
a
sure, for
well,
sure.
yeah, Bay Area native, a long time.
Yeah, I wrestled in high school. I had a couple matches in South San Francisco.
Oh, good, good,
Yeah,
right on.
lost all of them, but yeah.
That's good. That's good. It's
All
good
right,
to
man.
get to hear that fellow wrestlers, amateur wrestlers are making the connections. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I'm actually a high school wrestling coach now. Yeah.
Oh, dope. That's where at.
Mount Eden in Hayward.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
I wrestled there, so I coach with the guys that coached me.
Oh, good. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I guess it all comes full circle. Yeah, man. But I want to talk to you about when exactly did you start training?
Oh, sure, sure. Well, it started out in August 26th, I believe, in 2012, out in Sacramento, California. One of my coworkers was training for boxing at the time, and one of his sparring partners just happened to be a guy who was also training in professional wrestling. He kind of wanted to do it as a hobby more so than actually make it a career. But my coworker told me about it, and after giving it some time to kind of mull it over, I decided, you know what, let me go check out this little gym. And there happened to be four people at the gym at the time. One of them was the owner of the Sacramento Wrestling Federation, who just ran a show this past weekend, Josh Edlow, and two trainees. One of them was Brian Reed, who ended up going to NXT, and my trainer, old school Oliver John. So, and his claim to fame was being Sheamus's debut match on WWE national television at now defunct ECW. So I got to be under his tutelage for about a year until I made my debut on August 25th, 2013.
Okay, awesome, man. So yeah, I think I do remember Oliver having that match with Sheamus. I was a kid when that happened, man.
Yeah,
I do remember that briefly. Yeah,
it
so
was so long ago.
eventually you did move to the APW boot camp though, correct?
I did. I moved to the Bay Area, and I happened to connect with Sparky Ballard, who at the time was kind of taking over the reins of I don't know, running the training facility, which had to relocate from Hayward all the way out to Pacifica, California. So it was kind of serendipity that I was able to that it moved so close, and I didn't have to drive over the bridge each and every time. So it's they kind of worked out that way because I needed to continue honing my skills. And at the time, after I hooked up with Sparky, I got to train under out of Control Matt Carlos and the Golden Boy Dylan Drake, and got to continue further my education as I was a budding superstar in the making.
So you never got to wrestle in the garage.
Actually, I wrestled in the what happened to be the final show of the at the garage. It was the APW Young Lions Cup of 2013, and some of the stars that you got to see today, were on that same event, like Marcus Lewis, Sione Finau, and many others. And unfortunately, literally the next week, Roland Alexander passed. So the following week, like literally the 1 week after, we came back and had the memorial show for Roland, and that was the last event in the garage. So I get to wrestle in the garage twice if you had to make a tally.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome, man. I've always said the APW garage had a feeling like the ECW arena. There was just a special feeling in that small building.
I always heard about the garage, and as I was working with other guys who were already already deep into it and already had a couple matches under their belts. The garage is a special place to wrestle in, and I'm fortunate to get a little piece of that, and I could see the allure, the what makes it so special. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any dealings with Roland?
No, I unfortunately I can't say I have. There's so many people that he's affected positively, and um, I guess I came a little bit too late in the game. I just happened to work out that way. But he was nice to me. He was nice to everyone, especially kind of when he knew he was on his last days on Earth. So I think he treated everyone very well and treated me very very well.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet Roland Alexander. Super nice guy, and I thank him for APW. It's the best wrestling here in the Bay Area, so I just really want
Yeah,
to thank him for that, and may he rest in peace. But
absolutely.
when it comes to somebody becoming a professional wrestler, they idolized people as kids. So when you were watching wrestling as a kid, who did you love?
Man, I think. Well, I started watching wrestling when I was 10. I was flipping through the channels, and this is before like the big advent of cable television. Like we just happened to get cable television hooked up to our neighborhood, and I remember like I now have at the age of 10 all these channels that like Nickelodeon, MTV, USA, and when I was 10, I just happened to flip channels and I saw like The Rock and Mankind feuding at the time. That was the hottest thing, and The Rock, when he was the corporate champ, something about him like that just attracted me, like the gravitas, the charisma, and the athleticism as well, and obviously Steve Austin. Pretty much everyone throughout up and down the roster was special because if they were not the most gifted, they were the most charismatic, and the best of the best were the ones who really made their personalities stand out. So, the WWF Attitude guys, those are the guys that I kind of gravitated towards.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Attitude Era, it was so special. Everybody was a character. Everybody was over. So, Mankind and Rock, is that the first match you ever saw?
Gosh, I think that had to be it. Like it was around the Royal Rumble time before they had that I Quit match. Um, yeah, it was literally like right before then that was one of the first matches I saw myself.
So, did you kind of mold your in-ring style after The Rock, or maybe just more of the personality traits that you portrayed in the ring?
Well, okay, so I mean that's when I started watching, and then when as I was an instant fan. I turned into a fan right away. So I continued watching it through that I guess what you would call the ruthless aggression era, where you have Eddie Guerrero, The Rock, Chris Benoit. I mean, even Triple H had great matches too, and he was carrying the company. So I really feel like charisma on top of actual athleticism. That's kind of what I gravitated and I really appreciated and admired. Um, and not just, I mean, no disrespect to those that are just big and lunky, but I really appreciated the art of wrestling and the art of storytelling.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you do see great storytelling here and there in today's landscape of pro wrestling, but now it's really kind of just a spot fest. I mean, the ones that kind of just take the story into their own hands. I do really appreciate that style of wrestling. Not to shame the guys who can do those amazing aerial maneuvers. You know what I mean?
It's really, I'm not gonna bash it either because I can understand how hard it is. Like I would, would have tried that for like 5 seconds. And I think, man, this is not for me. So, kudos to guys that can do it. But in the aspect of helping getting a crowd, keeping them engaged, it sucks to see. And I've been on many shows where guys emulate the same PWG high flying, crazy style, then people kind of just sit on their hands. Now, not to say that it doesn't work, because it does. There are settings in which that works, but sometimes less is more, and simplicity does it best. And in terms of longevity for the boys, and girls, it's definitely, there's a lot of wear and tear, especially even. I didn't wrestle the craziest style, but even for me, someone who worked, pretty steadily, I was definitely feeling the wear and tear in my last couple months on the job.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Now, you had a catch cans or shoot style wrestling aspect to your in ring performance. That just came from you wrestling in high school, correct?
Oh, I definitely had to. I really wanted to implement the catch as catch can style. Again, it's that high work rate without really super high impact on your body. And I still try to bring back the old school aspect of making this a competition, an athletic competition, and bringing back that hard, gritty feel of wrestling, amateur style, bringing that into the world of professional wrestling. So when we do some crazier stuff, that it'll accentuate the story that we portray.
Absolutely, man. Now, going back to your high school wrestling days, what was your go-to move?
Oh, Jesus! I was a low single.
Really low?
I'm a
Re-
Yeah. I was in the 160-pound weight class, and
okay.
I was like short and stocky. So there's a lot of guys that were tall and lanky, and I had to make it work. So tap on the head, low sweep single to the outside, and then just and go for the takedown. And I usually racked up points. As much as I would have loved to pin people, I'm like I would just outscore them. At
Ah,
least to the guys I could beat.
I love it, man. The head tap fake out to the low single. Were you an ankle pick guy
Yes.
too, or?
I oh I would always try, but some guys are just so long. I would try to go for the ankle pick, but
Dude, being
but
I'm a short guy.
sometimes I make it work.
Yeah, I'm a short guy myself, and wrestling those tall guys was no joke. I shot once. I was wrestling at I think it was Clayton Valley. I was wrestling in Clayton
Okay,
Valley,
yeah.
wrestling somebody from Washington. I shot right off the whistle. I got cradled in 45 seconds.
Oh gosh,
Yeah, man, like
that sucks.
it's no joke. What about on when you were in referees? Like, were you an escape guy? Were you chain wrestling? Like, what were you doing?
I would like to. I would always go for that Granby roll and try to get out. Try to
You
do
were a
something
Granby.
cute. I knew the Granby. I went to a couple camps. It's
Wow,
fun.
dude, that's
I want to
great.
style. I want to style on them. Not to say I could style on people, but I mean on the referee position, I'm just not strong there at all. Like there's guys who can, dude. If people slap on the grapevine on me, it's over. I can't work out without out from that. So I have
Oh,
to get
dude, the
back to
vines,
neutral.
yes. I didn't.
Yeah, those are my worst enemy, the vines.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you guys listening to this that don't know, the Granby, it's a risky move because if you don't roll all the way and quick enough, you can get stacked and lose the match like
Yes.
instantly.
Yeah, you can get pinned and get stuck. Yeah.
I remember I had a match. I went for a Granby. I thank God the guy didn't know what he was doing. I messed it up, so I was able to hit back in referees, and then I hit the Gazoni and walked out with the dub. So, yeah, man, that's a really tricky move, man. Uh,
Yeah, I like to catch people off guard. It's fun.
were you into throws or anything like that? Like a couple laterals or anything?
Man, I wish if I had hindsight 2020, I wish I invested more time in learning the Greco-Roman style, because I would have benefited from that, having that lower center of gravity and being able to take people down, throwing over the shoulder. But I didn't get to develop that move set, and by the time I did, I'm already like in my junior senior year, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with wrestling.
So
I'm not taking this to college or anything.
yeah, I think like it's just a high school thing for a lot of people, and then the really serious people carry it out through college, and of course some to the Olympic level.
Absolutely.
But did you wrestle all
Yeah,
4 years, or?
I did. I mean, I always wanted to be a professional wrestler. When I was 10, I'm like, I want to do that. And then when I got to high school, yeah, I had no idea where I'm supposed to go, how the path is like. But I actually played football first, in towards the end of the my freshman year, or end of the freshman season. One of the coaches who also coached wrestling, gave us a little pep talk. He said, "Hey, you want to improve your conditioning? Try out wrestling for the season." And that was his recruitment speech. And I'm like, "Yes, I will. I will learn that." I wanted to learn. It has to parlay with wrestling, pro wrestling somehow. So let me go check out the amateur style wrestling. And again, if it was available to me when I was like 8, I totally would have done it sooner. But next best time to start was, I guess, for me, 14.
Yeah,
So
man. It's interesting. I mean, here on the West Coast, guys really just start wrestling at when they freshman year of high school, but on the East Coast, they start wrestling when they're like 4 or 5 years old.
yeah, out of the womb, basically. Yeah,
Exactly, man. It's crazy, but
it's just a culture.
it
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it's just the way the West Coast operates. But
Yep.
did you take any of the things that you learned during your high school years of wrestling into your professional wrestling career?
Um, I would take the. It was not so much the technical aspect of wrestling. I mean, that does apply, but I would guess the character development and the grit that you develop as a high school athlete, that is definitely a huge boon for me when I was up and coming. Because when I was in college, I had no vision in terms of like trying to get into pro wrestling. I didn't have a vision. It's kind of like after high school, I stopped working out. I was, doing I was doing all sorts of types of jobs. I was in college, trying to get my degree. At the time, my bachelor's degree, and kind of got disconnected with wrestling for a while. But so I wasn't in shape when I met up with Oliver John. But when I got back, when I had a vision that I wanted to debut in better shape than I obviously was at the time, harkening back to my lessons that I got in high school with football and wrestling and some of track. I did discus and shot put throwing and track, but that's just to keep me in shape somehow. But the character development that I got from high school athletics really helped me out when I was trying to come up in wrestling.
Absolutely, man. There's a grit, there's a determination, there's a respect aspect that's taught in a high school
Mm,
wrestling room that I've still carried on into my adult life. And I think anybody who
yeah,
wrestled in high school for a number of years, they carry that on throughout the rest of their lives as well. And I'm happy to see that
yeah.
you carried it into your training. But I have to ask you, were you always charismatic in high school and in your younger years, man?
Oh, definitely not.
Because
I mean, if you had to put it into a definition, I would probably be an extroverted introvert. So it's not like I'm going out of my way to make conversations and do speeches or anything. But if I had to turn it on, I could turn it on, and it. But the performance art aspect really draws it out of me. And if the red light is on, then it's go time. So yeah, in high school I was kind of just do my homework, get my A's, and I'll just stay out of people's way and just keep to myself. But I made it work.
awesome. Because man, there's entrances in wrestling that blow people away. Goldberg, The Undertaker, Austin, and the glass breaking. You singing "Careless Whisper" to the ring is one of my favorite live wrestling experiences of all time. I mean,
Well,
where did the
yeah,
concept of singing George Michael down to the ring while you're basically holding the microphone like a wine glass, being a pro
yeah.
wrestling style Hugh Hefner, where did all of that come about?
Well, it's so funny. I mean, well, first of all, I'm glad that you lumped me in with being all on the likes of Goldberg and the Undertaker. That's pretty awesome. But well, the concept of uh, singing "Careless Whisper" as a wrestling intro actually came from the mind of Marcus Mack, so the promoter of All Pro Wrestling. and he said, why don't you sing Careless Whisper? I want you to sing this on the way to the ring. And I looked at him and I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, yes. And, I was willing to try something new to really help myself stand out. And I said, you know what, let's give it a try. So, sure enough, the next following show, I made sure to kind of have an edited version prepared, whittled down, um, so I could, make sure I, within time constraints, do my thing. And after a couple tries, after a couple shows tinkering and trying out new things, there we go. There was the entrance that you remember me for.
Yeah, man, because I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, I went to a show, I heard the saxophone play. I'm like, is that Careless Whisper? And then all of a sudden, I see you just singing it to the ring, and I'm like, oh my god, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And if I couldn't do any high flying aspect, if I couldn't do any flip to dos outside of the rings, the one thing I can do is make you remember my entrance. So that's the impact that I understood I can contribute. And I didn't do it on all shows, I must say. So I brought the wood for all pro wrestling.
Now, man, I don't want to put you on the spot, but can we get a little bit?
Um, gosh, time can never mend careless whispers of a good friend to the heart and mind. Ignorance is kind. There's no comfort in the truth. Pain is all you find. There you go. That's all you get.
Oh, I was ready to jump into the chorus with you, man. I was ready for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. It was great. I think I was at the one APW show where you were in a tag match. You were on the apron, and then they played your entrance just out of nowhere, and then the crowd just started going with it too. And it was like just a
Yes.
giant karaoke session. It was awesome.
I think that was one of my last matches. I think that was in April. I do remember that show vividly. And after doing it a couple times at APW, it really caught. And it finally, people were hip to it. It took a while for them to really get hip to it. And they finally sung in concert with me. So it worked. I remember that day.
I loved it, man. Now, you've been in the ring with some very interesting talent. I want to talk about the Boogeyman. I mean, what's it
Yes.
like to wrestle a man who is hides under your bed and then eats worms? Like, what's that like?
So working with a boogeyman, someone of that stature, just someone who I've watched when I was just a teen, getting a chance to wrestle him, that was it's quite a unique experience. Um, just being able to move a crowd, doing so little, just had that was just the power of personality. And we were able to tell a story. We tore the gymnasium down, uh, figuratively and literally. I was like throwing chairs around, trying to get through the crowds and trying to get away from this demonic figure. So, and it was a good time. It was an excellent experience.
Now, are those mealworms or are they like worms from the ground?
Those were worms from the ground. So yeah, they were squirming and chewed them up and fed it to me like a bird, like a mama bird.
So I know you've since retired from professional wrestling. When exactly was your last match?
Let's see. Um, my last match, that was out in Concord, when I wrestled in APW against Levi Shapiro. And that was particularly special for me because my trainer, Oliver John, was in the audience. And everyone wanted to see him wrestle, but he wouldn't do it. It's like, once you're done, there's a kind of a phase that where you kind of have to accept that once you're done, you're done. So um, that was a special event. That was back in May, and it's my last matches. And as you probably have seen by now, that Levi has become the internet champion. So
Yeah, man.
um, I'm
Levi's been
glad
on
to.
he's been on the show as the champ.
Yeah, he's been on the up and up. So I've been following. Of course, there's social media, so I know everything's going on. But I'm glad to see him fully have a breakthrough, and I'm glad to help bring that out of him. That was always my goal for when I wrestle, especially on a show of that magnitude. I want to bring out the best out of the people that I get to compete against.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Levi, he's a hell of a worker. I'm incredibly happy for everything that he's accomplishing as the APW Internet Champion. But you talk about it being your last match. I mean, in wrestling, nobody ever really truly stays retired. I mean, Shawn Michaels was gone for a
Oh,
decade, but he finally came back. So you're telling me there's no
oh yeah.
way that you're lacing up those boots again and singing George Michael down to the ring?
I mean, like I remember. Well, the week before that was my second to last match at West Coast Pro Wrestling out in South San Francisco. But I gave not a farewell, but sort of a farewell speech at the end of my match, and I acknowledge that no one ever really retires, so it's not really a goodbye. It's just a see you later. But yeah, I feel like what I've accomplished. I'm ready to. I left it all out on the table. So when it's all said and done, when the smoke is cleared, I can look back and say, what, I gave it my best. So I mean, not to say that I'll never do it again, but I'm pretty content with everything that I've accomplished.
Hey, right on, man. Now, since retiring, you've moved to to Vermont, and you currently go to the University of Vermont. What are you studying?
Well, oh yeah, so I moved pretty much 3,000 miles across the country. Just picking up where I left off. I'm pursuing my doctorate in physical therapy. Um, got my kinesiology degree out in Sac State, like 2011, and then I decided I'm not ready for grad school yet, so I'm gonna go. I wanted to figure out my life, and lo and behold, I found professional wrestling. And now, yeah, now that I got that out of my system, I'm back here and and getting, taking the next step towards having a career and yeah, just the next phase in life, so to speak.
Oh, right on, man. Are you out there alone, or?
No, I came out with my girlfriend Joanna, and she's trying to figure out her life as well as I'm doing mine, and just being a happy little family with her two cats, and having a good time out here.
Hey,
So
man.
it's just gotten to the point where it's starting to get a little cold. It's like definitely we hit, early in the mornings we've hit that below 50 degree. It's like that winter is coming kind of feeling.
Winter's coming. Game of Thrones fan?
I enjoyed the show. The ending it was all right. I'm not as outraged as most people were, but I enjoyed it. It was a good story while it lasted.
I've never seen 1 second of Game of Thrones.
That's okay. You're not missing out on much.
Oh,
There's
okay,
plenty to
cool.
be entertained by out there.
All right. I got a couple rapid fire questions, so just answer as honestly as you can.
We'll try.
All right. Favorite tag team of all time?
Oh man, that had to be the Brainbusters
Favorite wrestler of all time?
and the New Age Outlaws. Favorite wrestler of all time, that would have to be He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Oh, oh.
Yeah.
Pegasus Kid. I got you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Favorite gimmick of all time?
Favorite gimmick of all time, that'd be the Rock as the corporate champion.
Favorite finishing maneuver of all time?
The Stone Cold Stunner.
Brett or Sean?
Brett.
Oh. We're Sean guys on this show. Why Brett over Sean?
He's the best there is, best there was, so on and so forth.
Okay. All right, man. You know, that's always an interesting debate, even 20 plus years later. Who was better, Brett or Sean? Maybe if we ever record again, we're gonna have to get a deeper dive into that.
Well, Sean has had the better, higher profile matches, but in terms of work rate, yeah, I'll argue for Brett for the Brett boys out there.
No, I hear you, man. It's a debate that's as old as time. I understand. And
Yeah,
and last up, favorite match you've ever had.
favorite match I've ever had. Well, it had to. I would tie it between my second to last match and my last match, which was Levi Shapiro at APW and against Derek Slade at West Coast Pro Wrestling.
All right. Well, I think that does it. Johnny, thanks for coming on the BC, man. Really appreciate you.
Hey, man, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, really want to thank Johnny Dynamo for stopping by the BC. Yeah, man, I really got to bond with him over being an amateur wrestler, both of us wrestling in high school. And we really got to learn a lot about Johnny, man, you know, such as his favorite wrestlers and the one that shan't be named, but I'll say it, we can name him here, Chris Benoit. He's allowed to be named here on the BC. But yeah, man, it was really cool. Thank you, Johnny, so much. And how about that singing of Careless Whisper? Almost wanted to start a "You Still Got It" chant, but of course, you know, he retired a couple months ago, so it you don't lose it that quick, you know what I mean? But seriously, Johnny, thank you so much. The next time you hear from me will be with Brandon for the regular episode of the BC on Wednesday. That's the last ever Wednesday episode we're going to do, because the week after that, the Wednesday Night War officially kicks off, and Thursdays will be our new recording schedule. I will be at Raw later tonight, along with Brandon. If you see us, come say hi. And then All Pro Wrestling this Friday night, coming up, War at the Shore, Daly City. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the interview. Now enjoy the Careless Whisper.
I feel so unsure as I take your hand.
This has been the Bulletcast. Thank you for listening.